The memorial service for Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA and a prominent conservative youth leader, held on September 21, 2025, at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, drew tens of thousands of mourners and quickly became one of the largest gatherings ever organized for a private citizen, according to Fox News, with estimates suggesting close to 90,000 people either inside the stadium or in overflow areas. Former President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and numerous Republican leaders attended, and Trump described Kirk as a martyr for American freedom and a great American hero, framing the event not only as a tribute but as a rallying cry for the conservative movement, while the Washington Post and The Guardian noted that the atmosphere often resembled a political rally as much as a memorial, with speeches that mixed faith, patriotism, and sharp criticism of the radical left. The most powerful and emotional moment came when Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, took the stage, speaking with tears in her eyes as she forgave the man accused of killing her husband, saying, "I forgive him, because it is what Christ did, and it is what Charlie would do," as reported by the Daily Beast and The Sun, a message that stunned the audience and underscored the Christian values of mercy and forgiveness that Kirk often promoted in his work. Erica vowed to carry on her late husband's mission by leading Turning Point USA, promising that his vision of awakening young Americans to conservative values, freedom, and faith would not die with him. Trump's speech at the service, covered by Fox News and the Financial Times, went further by blaming the political climate and hostile rhetoric from the left for creating an environment of hate, with his remarks serving as both a tribute to Kirk and a campaign-style address designed to galvanize conservatives ahead of the 2026 elections, while critics, including outlets like The Guardian, argued that the event blurred the line between mourning and political mobilization. Nevertheless, for supporters, the service was deeply moving, combining worship music, prayers, and testimonies from friends and colleagues who remembered Kirk as tireless, passionate, and unwavering in his beliefs, with his death now symbolizing the cost of conviction in a polarized America. Coverage from CBS and AP News emphasized the unprecedented scale of the gathering, the heightened security, and the broader impact of Kirk's death on the conservative movement, which is now rallying around his memory as a unifying force. Erica Kirk's words of forgiveness contrasted starkly with the political firestorm around the assassination, turning her into an emblem of resilience and faith. And as she told the crowd that Charlie's voice would live on through all of them, the stadium erupted in applause, many describing the service as not just a memorial but the start of a new chapter for the movement he built. In the end, what could have been only a somber farewell became, in the eyes of supporters and critics alike, a defining moment where grief, faith, and politics merged, and where Charlie Kirk's legacy shifted from that of an activist to a symbolic martyr whose life and death may shape the future trajectory of the American right. The wave of gun violence that struck both New Hampshire and Indianapolis this past weekend has once again reignited debate over America's deep-seated gun crisis, with two separate mass shootings unfolding in very different settings but leaving similarly tragic scars. In Nashua, New Hampshire, a quiet wedding reception at the upscale Sky Meadow Country Club turned into chaos on Saturday night when 23-year-old Hunter Nadeau, a former employee of the venue, entered wearing a mask and reportedly shouted phrases like, "Free Palestine," and "The children are safe," before opening fire on guests, according to PBS and Sky News, killing 59-year-old Robert Stephen DeCesar, who was dining with his wife and daughter, and injuring at least two others by gunfire while several more sustained non-gunshot injuries in the frantic attempt to escape, with eyewitnesses describing terrified guests hiding under tables and some even trying to fight back by throwing chairs at the gunman until he was subdued and arrested. Local prosecutors confirmed Nadeau has been charged with second-degree murder, and authorities emphasized that there was no known connection between the shooter and the victim, leaving questions about motive unanswered, while families of those present recounted harrowing scenes of a wedding celebration suddenly collapsing into a nightmare. Just hours later, in Indianapolis, Indiana, another mass shooting rattled the community when at least 7 people were struck by gunfire in the early morning hours around a parking lot on Shore Terrace, as reported by ABC News and CBS, leaving 2 victims dead at the scene and 5 others rushed to hospitals, some in critical condition, with police saying no suspects were immediately taken into custody and the motive remained unclear, adding to the sense of unease across the city. Both shootings highlight the growing unpredictability of gun violence in the United States, where a joyous event like a wedding or an ordinary weekend gathering can be transformed into tragedy within moments. And as CBS noted, the incidents quickly fueled renewed calls for stronger background checks, improved mental health screenings, and tighter security protocols at public venues, though the political debate remains deeply polarized, with gun rights advocates resisting new restrictions and arguing that enforcement of existing laws is the more urgent priority. Beyond the political rhetoric, however, the human toll was evident. In Nashua, families grieving the sudden death of a loved one, children traumatized by what they witnessed, and a community shaken by the randomness of the attack. In Indianapolis, residents waking up to the reality that their city has once again joined the growing list of American towns scarred by mass shootings, with vigils already being planned for the victims. News outlets such as PBS, ABC, and Sky News framed these back-to-back tragedies as part of a national epidemic that refuses to abate, pointing out that mass shootings in the U.S. have surpassed 500 incidents already this year, an alarming statistic that underscores how common such violence has become. Ultimately, whether in a country club dining hall or a city parking lot, the message is the same. Americans continue to live under the shadow of gunfire, uncertain when or where it might strike next, and until comprehensive solutions are found, the cycle of grief, anger, and political stalemate will keep repeating itself. A major shift in global diplomacy took place this week as the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia formally recognized the state of Palestine, a decision announced on September 21, 2025, during the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and one that has already sent shockwaves across the Middle East and beyond. According to the Associated Press, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the recognition was intended to keep the two-state solution alive, amid ongoing war and devastation in Gaza, arguing that Palestinian self-determination is essential for any lasting peace, while Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney stressed that his country's recognition was about affirming the rights of Palestinians without in any way legitimizing terrorism, and Australia's Anthony Albanese echoed those sentiments, saying the move was rooted in the belief that Israelis and Palestinians must find a path to peaceful coexistence, though he acknowledged the Palestinian Authority must also commit to reforms and effective governance before full diplomatic relations can deepen. Reuters reported that embassies and new diplomatic missions could follow, signaling a concrete shift in Western foreign policy, but the announcement immediately provoked fierce criticism from Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blasted the decision as an absurd reward for terrorism, in the wake of the October 7 Hamas attacks, claiming that recognizing Palestinian statehood while hostages remain in captivity and Hamas still wields influence is both premature and dangerous, a sentiment echoed by far-right ministers like Itamar Ben-Gvir, who called the move a threat to Israeli security and vowed to push harder for settlement expansion and annexation in the West Bank. The Guardian noted that the Israeli government summoned ambassadors from the three countries for formal protests, while Al Jazeera highlighted that Palestinian leaders hailed the recognition as a long overdue step toward justice, with President Mahmoud Abbas calling it a victory for international law and human dignity, and Hamas celebrating it as a political triumph, though observers pointed out that recognition alone does not resolve the immediate crises of civilian deaths, humanitarian aid blockages, and ongoing military operations in Gaza. Beyond the region, the recognition has created new divisions in Western politics, with some European countries and the United States maintaining that recognition should only come as part of a negotiated peace deal, fearing that unilateral moves could undermine negotiations, while others argue that the collapse of past peace talks and the sheer scale of destruction in Gaza make recognition the only way to keep diplomacy alive. The Financial Times reported that diplomats view the move as both a moral stance and a strategic calculation, intended to pressure Israel into halting settlement expansion while giving Palestinians leverage to re-engage in negotiations, but critics insist that without binding commitments or enforcement mechanisms, recognition risks being a symbolic gesture with little effect on the ground. For ordinary Palestinians, however, the announcement sparked celebrations in Ramallah and across parts of the West Bank, where many waved flags and described the recognition as a moment of dignity, after decades of occupation and statelessness, though others expressed skepticism about whether anything would materially change while bombs continue to fall in Gaza. Ultimately, the coordinated move by three major Western democracies represents a significant diplomatic milestone, one that reshapes the global conversation about Israel-Palestine, raises pressure on Washington to clarify its position, and underscores the widening gap between rhetoric and reality in the struggle for peace in one of the world's most enduring conflicts.